sweeteners. We'll talk mostly about artificial sweeteners, but there are other alternatives to sugar that I kind of want to talk about because they have all kinds of different, advertising strategies, and just want to be aware of what's out there. So, okay, so I just said that, and I think Kelly already touched on this, but I just wanted to clarify from last week's presentation that the reason I went into all that about reading the ingredients is because if the added sugar isn't specifically called out on the label, you want to look for the ingredients. You want to look through the ingredient list to see if you see those, brown rice syrup, maltose, all those kinds of things that can indicate added sugar. I think it is a new FDA regulation that they have to list added sugar, but I'm sure that not all the companies are on board with that yet. So just a clarification, and the naturally occurring sugars in milk, vegetables, fruits, grains, those are all okay. All right, so I'm going to run through several, marketed sugar substitutes. And we'll go through these rather quickly, but if you
are you sharing a presentation?
Yes. You can't see it?
No.
Oh,
you have to share it. It's okay. We've loved seeing your face.
Oh my God. Hold on. I thought I did share it. Oh God. So you were seeing my face that whole time? That's awful. Wait.
It's not awful.
Yes, it is. Gosh. Okay.
There we go.
It's that second share click that I always miss.
Good. And then, make your screen big. Perfect. All right. We're ready. We're ready to learn.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with Sweet and Low. And it's actually saccharin called sodium cyclamate. It's 300 to 400 times sweeter than sugar. And this kind of goes with most artificial sweeteners. They have 0 calories. Your body can't really break them down. They kind of pass right through. They don't spike your blood sugar. So, there are good and bad things to all artificial sweeteners. And honestly, there hasn't been that much research done on them, but that will kind of go without saying on most of them, that they kind of go through your body. It's a coal tar derivative, the sweet ingredient in Sweet and Low. And I learned when I was doing my research that it was discovered by a chemist who was working on something, and he apparently was working with these chemicals and then licked his fingers and tasted sweetness, and that's how this came about. I think it's kind of funny that you'd be working with chemicals and then would lick your fingers, but anyway, so that was Sweet and Low, and that's the pink packet. Equal is aspartame, or asulfame potassium, and that is, again, passes through the body. It's excreted by the kidneys. This chemical is what they use to measure the level of urine in swimming pools. So it stands up to chlorine somehow. It's 200 times sweeter than sugar. Again, no calories. It has, if you look at the ingredient list on Equal, it has a bunch of other little things in it. The aspartame, that's the sweet part, but then it has things that are added in it to kind of cut the sweetness and bulk it up so that it's more usable. Splenda, that's the one that's supposed to be good for baking. I think it's more of the, you can use it in baked goods without the aftertaste. And it's sucralose. It's really, really sweet, 600 times sweeter than sugar. And it contains those bulking agents as well. The little packets will contain the bulking agents. Stevia, stevia is made from a plant that you can actually grow in your backyard. It's highly refined. I mean, there's really no similarity between the stevia leaf and the white powder. it kind of has, I don't know, it's supposed to have a licorice aftertaste. I know when I've tried it, I always get kind of the same aftertaste from artificial sweeteners. So I don't know if, Kelly, I don't know if you agree with that or not, that it has the licorice taste.
No, I've never sensed licorice. There's an aftertaste to all sweeteners. I can't, it's unique to artificial sweeteners. They just kind of
Yeah.
hang around beyond the sweetness.
Yes. Yeah.
Most people that I know say that stevia has the strongest aftertaste, but
Okay.
then people who use it regularly get used to it and then don't taste it anymore.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that did come up in my research that it did have, that was one of the more frequent complaints for stevia than other ones was the aftertaste. And there are a lot of different forms. I mean, these stevia in the raw, Truvia, just stevia drops. There are a lot of different forms of stevia out there. And it has also added ingredients depending on the form of the product.
So can I ask a question about this whole thing, 200 times sweeter than sugar, 600 times? This is why, even if you use this, you still are craving sweetness?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can use smaller amounts of this than you would of sugar.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't do anything to cut your cravings. It doesn't do anything to make you not want sweet things.
Thank you.
So yeah, very good point. I'm actually going to bring that up later, but that's a really good point. I think somebody had asked about monk fruit last time. And so now we're getting into sugar alternatives that are they're not as artificial as the first four we talked about. Monk fruit is made from a gourd. It's called monk fruit extract. And again, it's, they take the fruit and extract the juice, and then they extract the sweet part. And it's also mixed with some other ingredients to cut down the sweetness. I couldn't really find anything wrong with this, with monk fruit, other than, that it's still sweet. And like most artificial sweeteners, its effect on your gut bacteria is unknown. It's like sugar disrupts your gut bacteria. There are some studies out that say that artificial sweeteners do the same thing, but I didn't see anything really, really bad about monk fruit. It is mixed with inulin a lot of times, some of the brands that you'll see in the stores, and that's that fiber, the chicory root fiber. We mentioned that the last time, and some people have a really hard time digesting that. So I would, again, read that ingredient label if monk fruit is, your sweetener of choice. Make sure it doesn't have inulin in it, because that could cause digestive upset. This one has agave, or blue agave. Everything I looked up on this said it's worse than sugar, and it's because it's mainly fructose, and anything high in fructose is very, very hard on your liver, and it's converted to fat. So stay away from this agave syrup. It originates in Mexico, and apparently whatever form of it they use in Mexico, like a more primitive form, is not as harmful, but when it gets to be in this really highly processed form, it's bad news. It's also not 0 calorie. It has 60 calories per tablespoon.
Hey, Kara, can you go into a little more detail? Because I'm familiar with what you mean when you say it's hard on the liver, but can you talk a little bit about why things like high fructose corn syrup and agave syrup, what the damage is that they do, and why does that make it convert to fat easier than other sugars?
It's because glucose is it's an energy building block. Like it's usable, and the body can use it. Fructose, small amounts are fine, but the pure fructose the liver just can't process in those big quantities. So it will change it into fat just because it has to have something to do with it. Like our bodies are not built to process large amounts of fructose. And you know, that's why the high fructose corn syrup is also very dangerous, because it's just too much. It's too much for the body to handle at once.
So it's an unusable form of sugar. So glucose that we extract from other carbohydrates can actually provide energy and fuel, and we know that it can also provide energy for the brain. But fructose is not easily converted to energy. So it's converted to stored fat. Wow. Well, there you go. Goodbye. Yeah. No agave for me.
Yeah. And it had, yeah, it's just like, stay away from it. It's just bad news. All right. So honey is, fairly minimally processed, depending on what you buy. I don't recommend pasteurized honey. Now, pasteurized honey, it's usually in the cute little bear containers that kind of squirt out real easily, because the more it's pasteurized and processed, the thinner it is and the easier to use it is. But you're also losing a lot of the good benefits of honey if you buy the pasteurized. So I would stick with raw honey. And if you can get it locally, it's supposed to help you build up your immunity to like local pollens, because that's where it comes from. Like the brand on the right in that picture, that's actually one of the ones that's available at like Fruits Market and some local stores. But I mean, you can buy honey that's made in, Colombia. You can buy honey that's made in Ashton. And those are all, better than the pasteurized honey. And it does have some anti-cancer benefits. It nourishes your gut bacteria. It's sweeter than sugar. It's got 64 calories per tablespoon, but you don't really have to use that much honey in something if you want to sweeten, like, tea or coffee or something like that. I use it in tea. I don't know if anybody uses it in coffee. It just doesn't really sound appealing. But this is actually, if I'm going to sweeten something, raw honey would be my choice, just because it comes with more benefits than pretty much any other sweetener. Maple syrup is another one that is fairly minimally processed depending on what you buy. Grade B is the better choice out of all the varieties. It's like it's harvested later in the season, and it contains more of the natural minerals that come out of maple syrup. And if you're buying this like for pancakes or whatever, make sure you're getting pure maple syrup and not like the Aunt Jemima. They don't even call it maple syrup anymore, because it isn't. It doesn't even contain maple syrup. It just has a lot of bad things in it. Molasses, we talked about this a little bit last week. It's a byproduct of the sugar making process. It's like a very thick liquid, and it also comes in different degrees of darkness. The light is the first boiling, dark is second, and then blackstrap is the third. Blackstrap is it's bittersweet. It's good for, like, if you're baking, gingerbread or something like that. It adds a really nice, kind of a bitter flavor, but it's still sweet. Again, it's not perfect, but it does have a lot of vitamins and minerals in it. So if you choose to sweeten with molasses, you are getting some benefit. Organic coconut sugar, I see this in a lot of stores, and
one second. Can I ask a question regarding the molasses?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever have you used this like to cook with, or anything like that? In other words, what kind of reaction if you use that instead of sugar?
You mean like on your digestion?
Yes, and also the way it reacts in, say, like in recipes. Like, is it a is it something that is a good substitute because you can use it for that sort of thing, or
The lighter varieties of molasses are good substitutes in baking.
mm-hmm.
I would not use the black strap if you're making something that's supposed to be really sweet, because it's not going to be really sweet. Like, that's why it needs to be in something more like, like
that has
ginger,
other
like
flavors?
spicy. Yeah. And blackstrap is also good in like barbecue sauce or baked beans, that kind of thing. Like, you might want to use it in place of brown sugar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because it has like a more earthy taste than, the more refined sugars. So the coconut sugar is, it's also kind of high in fructose, and it comes from the sap of the coconut plant. Does have some vitamins and minerals in it, as well as the naturally occurring fiber. So, are there any other sugar alternates or artificial sweeteners? Because I think that's the last one I highlighted.
I was just going to ask about that. Never mind.
Oh, sugar alcohols?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so sugar alcohols, they're hybrids of sugar and alcohol, obviously. And usually they're processed from another sugar. So they're like super, super processed. And you find them in a lot of processed foods. They're just on the ingredient list, added as a sweetener. Xylitol is in a lot of products. A lot of people can't eat it. This was one of the first sweeteners they used in like no sugar added ice cream. And I remember people would kind of go nuts on that and then spend days in the bathroom. It can be really hard on your digestion. It's also very toxic to dogs. So if you have anything with xylitol in it and you have a dog, make sure you keep it out of the reach of the dog. Erythritol has the reputation as being one of the healthier sugar alcohols. Sugar sorbitol and maltitol are others that are found. Maltitol is marketed as good for diabetics. And then there are some other ones that are found in products, and they're usually listed separately. When an item contains a sugar alcohol, it'll usually be spelled out. Obviously, it'll be in the ingredient list, but it's usually also called out on the nutrition label, like, that contains sugar alcohols.
I've never heard of sugar alcohol. Is this very prevalent in a lot of things?
It is actually, yeah.
And you usually see it like listed on the label as the xylitol or erythritol. I mean, is that how it usually is appearing?
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at a label to see if it exists in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like xylitol you'll find in peanut butter sometimes.
Chewing gum.
Yeah, chewing gum. Those are in a lot of chewing gum. Yeah.
So Kara, do you consider this then, when you're looking at labels, this becomes part of the added sugar?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. Yep.
Can I make a comment on sugar alcohol before you move on?
Sure.
Because being an artificial sugar addict, and what I learned was, for whatever reason, the stevias, the monk fruits, they tend to blend them with sugar alcohol in the packets, especially xylitol, but a lot of times erythritol. And when Kara says they can be hard on the digestive system, she's really understating that. And often what ends up happening is protein shakes, low sugar protein bars, lots of things that are marketed as health foods. So like these dairy-free, especially frozen treats, like Soy Delicious and Halo Top and all of these other low sugar treats. These then become, you can't even get to the bottom of what is making your guts feel like the Goodyear blimp. And you have to lock yourself in the bathroom all day. And sometimes something happens and sometimes something. It's like the worst combination. You don't know which way it's going to go. And then they usually, and Kara, tell me if I'm wrong on this, they also love, because if it's low sugar, then they try to make it more filling. So then they add the inulin and they add the chicory root and they add all the fillers and then they add the carrageenan and then they add the acacia gum. And the next thing you know, you've just got a stomach full of garbage that doesn't, here's the tricky thing, it doesn't have any adverse health benefits. So it's not unhealthy for you because they're not neurotoxins and inulin and chicory root and all these things. They're actually healthy, supposedly, right? Because they provide insoluble fiber.
Right.
And you're not getting the calories, but you want it to, like, destruction. So be very careful. There's this one, Kara brought up dark chocolate, and there's a dark chocolate brand out there called Lily's, and it says stevia sweetened, and it's filled with, I think, maltol and erythritol. I've had problems with every single one of these. Like, if I accidentally consume them, I will have like pain, like stabbing pain in my intestines. And I know a lot of other people do too. So I just wanted to kind of like, you can look at these and they're promoted as healthful because they don't have that adverse blood sugar response, and your body doesn't use them as calories. But let me tell you, buyer beware. So Kara kind of gleaned over like, oh, it's not that nice to your gut. Let me tell you, it's so much worse than that.
No, you're right. I mean, I have the same experience. If I eat something that has one of those things hidden in it, it's bad news. I mean, it's painful, and they are, they are marketed as very healthy, but the effect on your gut bacteria is really not known, other than that they can disrupt it. So, like you said, be careful. And yeah, protein bars, they're in an awful lot of the protein bars that are marketed as low sugar. So yes. Diet soda, there are a lot of diet soda brands out there, and sucralose and aspartame are what you're going to see mostly in diet sodas. And there are so many studies out about diet soda, and I mean, really, you can pick the one you want to read depending on what your point of view is. There seems to be a lot of evidence that diet soda drinking can be linked to obesity. There's association. It's not like it causes obesity, but there is association. And it's possible that link is because when you drink a diet soda, you're getting this rush of sugar with sugary taste, sweet taste, with no added nutrients. So, your body's like, great, we're getting something good coming in that we can use. And then all it gets is empty, nothing. I mean, no calories, no nutrition. So you start to think you're hungry, or your body starts telling you you're hungry, and you end up ingesting more calories than you would have had you not had the diet soda. And that's kind of a oversimplified, clunky way to say it, but it disrupts your normal rhythm, your feeling of fullness. It possibly can even disrupt like the hormones that tell you that you're full. It's, and I'm not saying that regular soda is any better. I would stay away from both of them. It's just that diet soda, I think people think it's like a free food, it's not going to have any effect on me because it has 0 calories, but it can actually make you want to eat more. And the other thing is, whatever's in it, like you know, you have choices about everything you put in your body. And I'm not sure that the additives in diet soda are really worth it. So it's just, again, it's just something to be aware of.
Kara, can you comment on the all of the sparkling waters that are out there, like the LaCroix and all of that that's so popular right now?
I think if there's sparkling water with natural flavor, like I think Hint is one of them. Is that sparkling? I'm not sure if that's sparkling or not, but I think they're fine. You know, because sometimes people miss that carbonation. And I think if you can get that from a sparkling water, if it's like fruit flavored or whatever, I think those are a really good alternative.
Yeah, that's my problem with I have no problem giving up soda,
Mm-hmm.
but I miss the bubbles.
Okay, well then sparkling water is a great, you know, that's a great alternative. These are just, since we're all at home now, these are really interesting to watch. And I guess Kelly, you'll post this later so you can get the links, but this is just an aside really, but to watch how sugar is made and from either sugar cane or sugar beets, it's fascinating, especially when you see all the stuff that it goes through. And then you end up with this, you know, white, pure crystals. It looks so pure, but when you see all the chemicals and processing that goes into making sugar, it's really fascinating. There aren't as many videos on how stevia is extracted. I'm not going to say it goes through as much processing as sugar, but again, it's just interesting. And if you have kids, it's kind of fun to watch. So I wanted to go back to all the choices that are out there for sweeteners. You know, it's kind of overwhelming. So I think, you know, these are just some tips to help you, kind of guide you through that. I think you want to keep your health and your goals in mind. You know, what's most important to you. And, you know, if you're not a big sweet eater, but you want to save, you know, you have like one treat, you know, a week or something like that, then, you know, whatever tastes good to you is what you should be looking for. So you want to keep your health and your goals in mind. Most of these, of course, they're all going to market that they have some kind of health benefit. You know, they're not going to say, it's not going to say on the label, you know, we don't spike your blood sugar, but, you know, we might give you diarrhea. So you just want to make sure, like, you know, they're marketing it to sell it. So make sure you're aware of what you're buying. Don't just go by the label. Anything with 0 calorie sweetener it's possible that it can disrupt your gut bacteria. The other thing is, and this probably goes way back to, like, do you remember Snackwells, when Snackwells came out, and they weren't 0 calorie, but they were, you know, marketed as healthy. So people thought they could just eat, you know, you could eat a whole box of Snackwells and you'd be fine because they were marketed as healthy. And I feel like it's the same thing sometimes with the 0 calorie sweeteners that, you know, you kind of think, well, I can eat as much Splenda as I would have eaten sugar and I'm not getting those calories. So, you know, I'm really ahead of the game. I don't think that's always effective because it's not helping you get rid of those cravings. And like Kelly said, we'll talk about cravings probably in another series, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you get away from wanting sweet foods. And that, I think that was the question that you asked earlier. You know, like just making a 1-to-1 replacement of sugar with stevia is not going to help you cut down. If you use it as, like, you know, a step in your process of getting off sugar, then I think that can be effective because you're, you know, number one, you're aware. Number two, you are reducing your calories. And, you know, if you see it as a step toward eating less sweet food overall, then it can be a good thing. Also, look out for that natural label. You know, sugar, like I said, if you watch the sugar video, yeah, sugar is natural. Monk fruit is natural, but they're all very heavily processed, except like honey is not a really heavily processed food. But even molasses, it's, you know, it's a byproduct of turning sugar cane into white crystals. So just make sure you read your labels, and that Fujicate app that I mentioned the last time, you know, if you're in the sugar aisle or buying a protein bar or something like that, you can just scan that barcode with the Fujicate app and it'll instantly give you like a food grade. It'll tell you, you know, is it worth it or not? And it'll point out what's good and bad about that food. So I'm really coming to like that because it's actually quicker than, you know, reading every little thing on the label. But you should still do that too if you have time, just because it's always better to know more. All right, so we kind of talked about this at the beginning, but, you know, taking action on actually reducing your amount of sugar or sweet food and awareness, we talked about that. You know, you need to kind of look at your present state, like how much sugar am I eating now? You know, when do I really crave it, or when is it just because that's what I've always eaten? Like, you know, if you wake up in the morning, you're not really craving sugar, but, you know, you normally have a donut instead of a piece of toast. Well, you know, that might be a good place to start, because our willpower, and I know we don't like to talk about willpower, but it is stronger in the morning. It's usually, that's why a lot of people, when they decide they're going to lose weight, you know, they won't eat breakfast, they'll eat a little bit for lunch, and then they go crazy at dinner, because it is easier earlier in the day for most people to make healthy choices. So maybe that's a good place to start. You know, instead of having a donut, you would have, you know, wheat toast with an egg or something like that. And that's just an example. Everybody's different. So, and then for your goal, like, you know, Allison, I hear you, and I can be kind of the same way. Like, you know, I'm going to go from 60 to 0. Like, I'm just not going to have anything. And I think that really does work for some people. In other cases, you want to break it into a series of manageable steps that you know you can actually attain. So, you know, start with breakfast, then work up to breakfast and lunch, then breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then, you know, I'm going to do this for a week. I'm going to do it for 2 weeks. Or you can say, you know, I'm not going to have dessert 3 nights this week. You know, your goals depend on your current state, your current lifestyle. So just look at that, and, you know, you're not going to change everything at once. You're not going to change everything overnight. We talked the last time about things to do to support your body as you are cutting down on sweet foods. And like one of them was drink more water, get enough sleep, you know, all the healthy habit changes that we always talk about. Well, you're not going to revamp your whole life in one night or 1 week, but if you start with that one thing in mind, like, okay, I'm going to cut down on sweet food. Well, one of the strategies for cutting down on sweet food is feeling full. And one of the strategies for feeling full is drinking more water. Well, that's a healthy change right there. Even though you're not consciously saying, I'm going to drink more water, it might just be a byproduct of trying to cut down on sugar. The sleep can be a little bit more difficult, because that's kind of that's a separate area, but the better sleep you get, the more sleep you get, not so much the more sleep you get, the more rested you feel in the morning, because again, everybody has different, like some people are fine on 6 hours, some people need 8, but the more rested you feel in the morning, the less you're going to want to reach for those sugary, starchy foods. So while you want to focus on one habit at a time, other things can fall into place, while you're working on that one habit, but don't tell yourself I'm going to be perfect right off the bat on everything, because that's just setting yourself up for failure. So make sure your steps are attainable, and you need to have like your emergency backup plans. Like when you're getting those cravings, have an alternative ready, and prepare your environment. And your environment means also the people you live with. Make sure that, they're kind of either in it with you, or, at the very least, not going to sabotage your efforts to basically make yourself healthier, because that's what you're trying to do. And it's not selfish. It's, you want to be healthier for yourself. You want to feel better for both yourself and your family. And one other point I wanted to make that's not on here. I think a lot of times when we make a habit change like this, we really don't know how that bad habit might have been affecting us. So you might not even have any idea how good you can actually feel. I think a lot of times you get into patterns that might be unhealthy. You might not even realize they're unhealthy. And just with sugar as an example, the sugar's big thing is, it's too many calories, it's going to make you gain weight. Well, there could be a lot of other things sugar are doing in your body. Even if you're not obese, even if you don't have high blood pressure, there can be a lot of other things that sugar might be doing that you're not even aware of. And once you stop sugar for 10 days, you might suddenly realize, my knees don't hurt anymore, or, my head's clear in the morning. So there are a lot of benefits you might not even be aware of right now, but it's so worth a try to see, how good you might actually be able to feel. So that's actually all I had to the presentation. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anything anybody wants to add?
All right, Kara, that was really great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you guys for coming and sticking.
The only thing I'd like to add to wrap that up is I got to talk to each of you before this started, and each of you are in a different stage of your self-care. So some of you are still in like the awareness phase as it relates to sugar. Some of you are ready to make a change. Some of you have already made a significant amount of changes and are motivated to do more. The one thing I'd like to have you think about until we talk about this again next week is, at all of those points, we are all running right now on kind of a traumatized version of our normal self, whether you realize it or not. As a community, as a people, as a world, we're experiencing a very, very traumatic event. And so what ends up happening is we're already running on kind of our default mode in our thoughts, in our behaviors, and our actions. And so give yourself that acknowledgement over the next week when you're trying to improve. We're trying to make improvements. We're trying to be healthy. But then understand that you don't have to be perfect. Nothing around you that's happening right now is perfect. You are doing the best you can with the circumstances that you've been dealt. So as you approach this, create it with this sense of intention of, all right, so my goal, the goal that I have personally, so me personally, I have a goal to not use any artificial sweeteners in my coffee in the morning, because I think that was really kind of setting this whole stage for this expectation of sweetness throughout the day. And so, but if that were to happen, because it's coffee and it's first thing in the morning and I haven't even started thinking yet, and this is what happened, it was put the stevia in the coffee. Oh, that's so good. I can't believe what did I just do? Like, it was so automatic. And then, so that will happen. You'll fall into it. You say, oh, okay, that happened. That doesn't mean doesn't mean I don't care about myself. Doesn't mean I don't have self-control. It doesn't mean I have willpower. I'm just going to move on from that. So I just wanted to share that with you, that be kind to yourselves. You're here because you want to feel good and you want to be healthy and you want to be the best version of yourself. You cannot do that if you're being very judgmental on yourself. You can find that balance between making that progress forward and being too hard on yourself. Because ultimately, I've learned this from dealing with overeaters and people who suffer with binge eating. The number one things that drives that is guilt, is shame. So stay positive about this and think about how you're nourishing yourself. And
Sure.
yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys all next week. Are there any other questions before we wrap it up?
I do have a question.
Great.
Going back to what Kara said about raw honey.
Mm-hmm.
You said something about if you buy it locally, it can help if you experience like difficulty with pollen.
Yeah, it can get your body accustomed over time to the local allergens in the air.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's not a magic bullet, but it can help you become less sensitive. Yes.
Is there like, are you aware of like somewhere I could go to get like further information on that? Or I mean, I can look at, I'm sure just myself, but is there some place you would direct me about that?
Actually, yes. I have information. I'm going to have to go see where it is. I don't have the website right in front of me, but
Okay.
I can post it on the Inner Circle.
I don't think that's on the Inner Circle, but if you send it to me, I'll post it in a recap, and I'll email Annette.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
All right, everybody, have a great week. I will see you guys next week. Oh, and don't forget, new program starts on Monday. So we'll get a new format, nice little change it up, and I'll see you in the Inner Circle. See you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.